Then BI 56 will be the role as a power user that it's meant basically to advanced users in BI who will be able to create reports and share those reports in the share folder in BI. But bear in mind, and let me use the laser here, the pointer, sorry here. So if I pointer, so this is the BI 55 will be the role that we are talking about. Okay, let me mute. Thank you, Brian. So once you have access to the as a BI 54, you will see the property management folder in BI. There, once you access, you will see the list of all reports accessible to you. You see that as I do have access as a BI 55 analytical user, I see all these reports, regardless whether it's analysis workspace or web intelligence reports. So the type of report will be in the second column. Report from the 4 analysis workspace that will go are customized by our RDM guys. They did create special cubes of data for specific purposes. We'll get to that later on in the week. And the different reports from 1 to 28, more or less, which are targeting the different KPIs in supply chain. Property management. So first and most important, this is really, really important, and we do want to receive as many questions as possible, the concept of reporting entity and business area. This is very, very important in the way that all prompts, or basically most of the prompts that you will see during the session and during all the different reports will have the reporting entity in the prompt. Okay, so business area along with the reporting entity will be the main fields responsible for reporting on property management KPIs. Okay, we'll get into those two concepts, but it's important to know that business area will be a mandatory field in all prompts, whereas the reporting entity will be a master data element, optional, if you do want to report based on a particular reporting entity. You'll see how it works, but basically a reporting entity may have one-to-one or one-to-many relationships with business areas, meaning that, for example, reporting entity UNSOS may do have different business areas in, I don't know, and obviously Mogadiscio, and obviously other reporting entities, for example, in business areas in some other places, because the reports are linked, the equipment is linked to the reporting entity UNSOS, and those equipments may fall under different business areas. Okay. Yes, do we have any questions so far? Okay, so we will going to really go through this concept. We have 3-4 slides, but we really want to make sure that the concept is well understood. Because you as a commodity managers or people working in property management will have to report based on the reporting entity. So you'll have to know how it works. So the reporting entity, its objective is to identify the ownership and responsibility of the different items, either it's a fixed asset or equipment, from the property management point of view. Okay, fine. Okay. Yes. Let me mute. Thank you, Brian. Reporting entity, it's more or less, it's aligned to the former destination location field in Galileo. For the ones of you who are keen on using, or were let's say, well experienced in using Galileo, it's linked to basically the destination location field in the former system. Let's see, next. Business area. The business area will define the financial responsibility of a particular equipment. So this is the difference between the two. The reporting entity identifies the ownership and the responsibility of the item. That's reporting entity. But business area will define the financial responsibility of a particular equipment. So if an equipment has to be maintained, or written off, the business area where that particular piece of equipment belongs will find people there in that business area will have to take action. And it's important, the business area, in the way that some of the equipment is in transit, right, as a part of an STO process. So at some point, the business area will have to be changed in the master data record, in equipment master data record. And that's why, in a way, excuse me, let me just mute our colleagues as well. Okay. So that's why the business area, it's important to get it well defined in a way that when you report based on reporting entity and you see different business area under your own reporting entity, you may want to take a look at those pieces of equipment and see whether the business area has to be changed because it's part of an STO process or for some other reasons. So I think that the concept will be really well understood when we go to the next slide. The business area is mandatory field, and the reporting entity in the prompt is not a mandatory field in the prompt. So when we are running our reports, a mission, we have to select a business area associated with the equipment records. That's for sure, because as I said before, business area is a mandatory field in the prompt. So let's say that we want to report, let's say we want to take a look at the equipment, fixed assets and equipments in the MONUSCO reporting entity. So we will use the prompt, in the initial prompt in the BI report, we will put MONUSCO as a reporting entity. Okay? And then as a business area, we will put all business area, because let's say that we just want to take a look at how many business areas are linked to my MONUSCO reporting entity, right? Because we may have some wrong records. So in case that we want to do a bit of cleanup or just take a look at how many business areas belong to my reporting entity, you just put business area all. So you select all business areas in the prompt. After that, you'll see lots of equipment in a particular.
Sorry, Daniel?
Yes, Brian, tell.
Yeah, just to make sure, I think you have either the participants list on the screen, and what we see is like a square box that's covering some of the presentation. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
I removed
it.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, and don't worry about the people being unmuted. I'm on that, even though it takes longer sometimes to find them, but just concentrate on the presentation and I'll focus on that.
Okay.
So you don't have to look at it, okay?
That's why. Okay, thank you, Brian. So when we have picked all business areas, in this particular example, for reporting entity MONUSCO, we are finding that some equipment are obviously under business area MONUSCO, most of the equipment, but we are going to find some equipment under business area RSE and some others, for example, under MINUSTA. I don't know, it wouldn't make sense, but that's how the system, that's the equipment that is retrieved by the system. So in the report itself, we'll see 3 business areas linked to the reporting entity MONUSCO. And if we do want to only filter equipment for MONUSCO, then at the report level, we will filter all equipment for MONUSCO. So we will select only the business area MONUSCO, and from there, we can just drag and drop equipment, user status, capitalized value, date, system status, any other object in the report. So we can say that the reporting entity is, let's say, a very high type of concept that it's going to look at several business areas, right? Obviously, the business area linked to the reporting entity will be the ones with the most number of items inside, obviously, but you may find some other items under other business areas in your reporting entity, and you may want to first wonder why, and then secondly make sure that the records are properly recorded and everything is it's fine, because if for example this truck under business area Entebbe, that it's the reporting entity MONUSCO, shouldn't be there, then you can easily track all those items in order to do a bit of housekeeping or cleanup of your data in BI. Well, in BI you do the troubleshooting, the findings, and then the troubleshooting and the transaction will be done in ECC. So I don't know, Brian, do we have any question in the chat related to the reported entity? Please feel free to intervene anytime.
Hi, Daniel. Nothing at all in the chat. Actually, no one has asked to participate orally or has written any type of question in the chat. So you're good to go. I think you did a wonderful explanation of the basics of reporting entity and business area, and I'm sure that if anyone has an issue, they can just remember, please write it in the chat, either to me or if you choose to speak up. When you write in the chat, make sure you're writing to the panelists so we can all see the question that we received. So in case Daniel or I don't have the answer to that question, we do have Casimiro Garcia, who's in HQ, and also Juan Reverte is also here in this WebEx session, so they could help us.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. So how, from the, let's say, system point of view, how it looks. So initially, from the conceptual point of view, this is a slide that, okay, it's understood, but then what happens if we do see the prompt itself? Okay, as a reporting entity, you see that we selected MONUSCO. Okay, because you don't see any asterisk, a red asterisk like this, that means that this master data element in the prompt is not mandatory. Okay, so you can select from different types of reporting entities, the one that you want, and as a business area, as we suggested before, you can select all of them in Umoja, and from there you run your report and you see how many business areas and equipment under those business areas related to your reporting entity. So I think the first exercise that you should do is that in order to really make sure that data is accurate and the data is reliable in the BI reports will be to take a look at the reporting entity from your mission and select all business areas, and from there try to understand whether the equipment in those business areas should be there or not. So once that's from the previous slide is from the prompt point of view. You see the prompt there. So once you launch the report, you'll see as an equipment reporting entity MONUSCO, and then 3 equipment business areas, MINUSTA, MONUSCO, and the third one, OSAG. And there I have several numbers related to the number of pieces of equipment. This is for any type of report. This is specific for report number 20 on the part of the analysis workspace for equipment, but this will be applicable, this rationale will be applicable to all type of reports and all prompts in these reports. So as conclusion, please remember that you can always select your reported entity with all business areas in the prompt, and from there you'll see the equipment under each of those business areas and the results afterwards. And then if you want to dig in, you may want to know, for example, which these 2 pieces of equipment are in this business area and which these 2 pieces of equipment are related to MINUSTA. Maybe it's wrong data. Maybe it's actually data that that may be subject to be changed from the master data, from the equipment master record point of view. So you may want to take, as a MONUSCO property manager, you may want to take a look at which these 2 pieces of equipment and these 2 pieces of equipment look like, to see whether that's accurate or not. But obviously, you can always run your reports with the equipment business area, only with your business area, and not using the reporting entity. This is not mandatory, but the business area is really mandatory in order to run any type of reports.
Okay, Daniel?
Yep.
Yes, just quickly now, before you continue with this, just a question we received from Charbel in the chat, and I think it may be interesting to share this with the rest of the participants. It's the question, if local process experts must have all 3 access roles, I'm supposing the BI roles, right? Or the primary will be enough?
Yes, well, I don't know whether that's my call from Valencia, but definitely, if you do want to take, let's see, have a wide scope of all reports and data in BI, at least you should have the BI 55 role, which gives you access to all reports, either analysis workspaces or web intelligence reports. As I said before, if you only have the BI 54, which is the basic user access, you will be missing all the analysis workspaces related to equipment, inventory, write-off and disposal, equipment in transit, and the analysis workspace is related to more than 60% of the KPIs in property management. That's from let's say the usage point of view. I don't know if either from the business point of view in New York whether Cass that will be accurate or not. Over to you in case that you want to. Okay. So
sorry,
yes.
I'm in a public location. I didn't hear the question very well, but I think it was related to the BI role.
Exactly, it has.
The first one was.
Which role should be let's say the most accurate to have as a local process expert, whether analytical user or basic user?
Maybe I can refer that to Juan. Anything that would allow you to access the analysis workspace, for me is sufficient because that's what you need to drill down.
Exactly, that's what we just said. That BI-55 should be the role to ask or to request if you really want to have a good perspective of how all the different reports have been designed. Thank you, Cass. So let's continue with the reporting entity and the business area concepts from the prompt point of view. You see that here on the screen that when we add an business area and we do not select a reporting entity, you see, only business area is there, P018, and we didn't put any reporting entity whatsoever, the data returned from the system will only be linked to the business area selected. Okay, so now it's, let's say, it's only data coming from the business area, in this case, MONUSCO, business area MONUSCO. Reporting entity, nothing. But data will be there. Data will be linked to the business area that you are inputting in the prompt. As an equipment business area description, MONUSCO, the system will retrieve pieces of equipment, but by default, in this screenshot of the analysis workspace, the system will give you information about pieces of equipment under reporting entity MONUSCO, and in this case, you know how that it's linked to the business area MONUSCO. So in any case, if you don't want to put it in the prompt initially, the reporting entity, in any case, information about the reporting entity and the equipment related to the business area reporting entity will be defaulted in most of the reports in property management. Okay. Last, in terms of prompts from reporting entity, the system will return as many related business area in the system as they are, but only with equipment and data to show for, meaning that you can, once you select all the business area under one reporting entity, the system will obviously give you only data from the equipment under the business area, which effectively they are under. Okay, those with no equipment data will not be shown. So that's well, I guess that's a no-brainer in a way. In a way that only the system will show data from equipment that it's in a particular business area. If there is no equipment in any other area, then that will not be shown. So more screenshots from the prompts, because you'll see all these things during the week. So selecting reporting entities and business areas that are unrelated will give you no data, right? And selecting reporting entities and business areas that are related but contain no equipment will give you no data neither. So before we do the polling questions, let me go back to this main slide. Remember that reporting entity can be selected and it's optional in the prompt. Good, let's say, good practice initially will be good to report based on your reporting entity, and you select all business areas, so you have a holistic perspective of all the equipment under your reporting entity, regardless the business area. Okay, and from there, in the report, if you want to filter for a particular business area, then you do it in the report. Okay, so doing this procedure will be good initially, if you want to do a bit of cleanup of the reporting of the equipments under different business areas that do not.
No, like I said, everything happened because you dated me. Everything happened because you decided to fight me in the middle of the road.
Brian? Yes, thank you, Brian. So that's from the reporting and business area, reporting into and business area concepts that we took a bit of time identifying all these concepts, but as you're going to see them all over and over, we decided to invest a bit of time with screenshots and explanations, so you have a clarity of what you may encounter down the road. So let me do the polling questions, and for that we're going to basically, and as we said in the initial presentation, what we're going to do is from time to time, in order to make sure that the concepts are well understood, we're going to throw some polling questions on the WebEx. So what you can do is just answer. We'll give you 3, 4, 5 minutes to answer the questions related to the concept that we have been going through, in this case the reporting entity and business area concepts, and then we will answer those questions, and from there we will continue with the presentation. So let me assign the role as a presenter to Brian, because he's got the polling questions. Over to you, Brian, and from there I think you can launch the polling questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, let me just give me one quick second. And by the way, while I'm creating the polling, there was also a question about, I think there's still some confusion in terms of what the role allows you to do. The question was related to creating reports from scratch. Now, I'm not sure what the participants mean by scratch. Of course, you can only work with the data that's offered to you by the system. So maybe if you want to clarify that, Daniel, in the meantime, while I prepare the polling question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, probably those questions are more related to being as a power user, BI56, if I'm not mistaken, will let's say give you the possibility of creating reports, web intelligence reports from scratch. Let's say designing your own reports and linking to different data elements and data links. But in this particular training, we are not going to cover that part because that's more advanced, let's say, training. And the aim of this training was mainly to show to you the reports, how do they work, and the different users you may need, roles that you may need. But if you want to have some more clarity on how to develop reports from the web intelligence point of view, then you will have to send us an email, and we will try to let's say either find you some documentation or show you through the process. But yes, you can do that, but only as a power user and with the sufficient knowledge, because otherwise it will be very, very messy. Okay, so yes, you can design from scratch, but only as a power user, BI56. So
okay, Daniel, thank you.
Okay.
So I'm ready to launch the polling questions. Now, do you think 1 minute, 2 minutes enough?
How many are there? 3?
Well, right now we have at least 4 questions related to the reporting entity.
Okay, do you think 4 minutes is enough?
All right, perfect. So I'm going to launch right now. And everyone should be now seeing on their screen a request to access the polling or the actual questions. I see some have already started. So please look in your screen, either at the bottom of the screen on your computer, there should be a pop-up requesting access to your computer. And in order to participate in this polling, you have to accept it. I see at least 11, 14, so people are starting to access this assessment. So basically, this is just 4 simple questions, just making sure you understood what Daniel was explaining about the reporting entity. and how to extract data when adding business areas and pulling entities, and what you're going to get if depending on the mix on the prompt. So you guys have 3 minutes and 11 seconds, and the polling will be over.
Thank you, Brian. For questions with multiple multiple answers, and then please remember that those polling questions will not be assessed. It's only for us to understand whether the concepts were understood, and whether we do have to reinforce some other questions. But it's kind of like an indicator for us on how this session is doing. So please be familiar with the polling questions, because we're planning to have like 6 or 7 every session, and from there we can just get direct feedback from you. Two minutes to go. Okay, so still have 40 seconds to go. So what we will do is Brian will share the questions and the answers, and we can go through them real quick. And after that, we will continue with the presentations and actually the first report and a bit of the mind map that we presented on the BTC the other day. So you have a good idea of how many reports and how many KPIs we're going to present during this week.
Okay, thanks, Daniel, and I believe that's it. The polling is over. So we were having some technical issues creating the polling on the WebEx this morning, so eventually it wasn't letting us display the correct answers directly in the poll, but what I'm going to do is copy and paste them into a Word document and share my screen and share the correct answers with you guys. Okay, so basically, just guys give me one quick second while I get this ready. 2, 3, 4 questions in total. All right, and now let me just share my screen quickly. And here we go. I think everyone should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, Brian.
Okay, perfect. So sorry they're all here at once, but nevertheless, I think your explanation was quite clear, Daniel, so I think no one will have an issue, but nonetheless, let me go through it. So first question, when adding a business area to the initial prompt and not selecting a reporting entity, the data the report will return will be no data, as you always need a reporting entity in the prompt. Now, according to what was just said, we know that that is not true. Actually, the reporting entity in the prompt is almost 99% of the times, if not always, optional. The only one that will be required mostly will be the business area one. So here we go. We have the second answer here. Only data related to the business area added is the correct answer here. And then we have the third one, all data related to all the business areas linked to all reporting entities. Of course, that one is incorrect, because if we look at the question again, when adding a business area to the initial prompt and not selecting reporting entity, when you do that, you're pretty much telling the prompt that the information you want is the one from the business area you're adding to the prompt and nothing else. Okay, second question. When adding a reporting entity to a prompt and all business areas, a report will return as many related business areas as are in the system, but only those with equipment to show for, of course, okay? If there's no equipment to show for, again, you'll get no results from the report. So the answer is true. When adding a reporting entity to a prompt, even if it's just a single one and all business areas available, the system will return all the business areas that are related or linked to this reporting entity. Okay, for the third question, when adding unrelated reporting entities and business areas to a prompt, the system will return, correct answer, no data. Okay, so remember, reporting entity data and business area data separately, incorrect, and only data related to business area, incorrect. So remember that they have to be related reporting entities and business areas. If not, in a way, you're sort of confusing the prompt or the system itself. Adding related reporting entities and business areas to a prompt that contain no equipment will return no data. Okay, so again, if there's nothing to return, no equipment, you will get no data in return as well. All right, so Daniel, I'll move it back to you since we've gone through this prompt quite quickly. If there are any questions, we can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Just give me a quick second and I'll make you the presenter again. And there you go.
Okay. So that was the part of the polling questions for reporting entity and business area concepts. You can always drop a question or in the chat or in your audio, no problem. We'll go through that. But you know, the best way to really learn must be, you know, using the system itself, and you will see how those prompts look like. So now we're going to go directly to the reports. As we said, 15-20 minutes on these concepts, we think it was necessary. So you will not be surprised with the prompts. But basically, the rationale for these 5 weeks will more or less follow this mind map in terms of property management. First, we're going to receive our goods, and for that, we do have report number 10 on the virtual goods receipt. So this is the first report we're going to see. It's a, let's say it's a report related to a KPI number 10, but it does have 2 reports, one Webby and one analysis workspace. That's why most of these KPIs have a dual reporting line, which is Webby and analysis workspace. That's why we want you guys to have the analytical user, so you will have a complete view of the KPI, right? So starting with receiving goods, report number 10, we will then go to the inventory management with report 19 with the accumulated asset depreciation and P&E, which are the fixed assets. From there, we'll touch base on the report number 9, and let me just take the laser pointer so it's easier. Okay, this is report number 9. On report number 9, we're going to take a look at the reconciliation of discrepancies. When we do the physical verification, we'll see how many items are still pending to be reviewed by the technical section, by property management. For that, we do have an analysis workspace that works very, very fine. And you will be able to tag and drag and drop the equipment serial numbers related to all those different status of the physical verification. Once we have done the report number 9, we will jump into the reports related to inventory, in reporting on inventory. For that, we have 4 types of reports. We have web intelligence reports and 3 AWS. Basically, we have the report number 20 will give you information about the inventory for rations and bottled water. We'll give you information about all the fixed assets and all the different master data elements related to the assets in your mission, which is report number 20 FA. That's analysis workspace. Then you have as well a report on the SDS and even reserve IPSs as well, along with the rest of the items in your mission from an inventory point of view. And then finally, we'll have a green, this green box, which is the AWS, the analysis workspace for inventory. That's a customized report that our colleagues in Valencia have created, and that will be very, very important to you to understand how it works, because you have plenty of data and objects to play around, and from there you will be able to see and understand how your inventory is looking like in terms of quantity and value. Needless to say, Cass, that you can enter in any time, any moment, and as well as Brian. After we've gone through the inventory part, we will touch based on the report number 11, which is the equipment utilization time frame. The percentage of equipment has been utilized or used in the mission based on the different statuses that are recorded in the equipment master record. And then we do have indeed another analysis workspace only for equipment. The same, you'll have all the different items that you can see in the equipment master records in ECC. All those fields basically will be in an analysis workspace, and from there you can play around with the data and see how all your equipment by, let's say, authorization group, by virtual goods received, by goods received, by the fund center, by business area, so you can really understand how your equipment mapping it's done in your mission with that analysis workspace. So after going through those two, probably that will be day 3, we will go through basically the warehouse stock records and the basics on the physical verification type of reports that are now accessible to us. And that's important in all the PIRO process, and that's why you see PIRO or PIRO process all over, because these reports will be important for you to take a look in order to report from the property management point of view, but as well to understand and troubleshoot within the scope of this project. So report number 21 will be related to more or less the accumulated depreciation of fixed assets. But then from 1 to basically 7, 6 reports, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 7, those reports will be related to the physical verification, and Brian will go through all those reports and demos on day 3. And then more on the operational stock and percentage of utilization of the stock and LSD stock ratio. That will be report number 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Remember that those numbers are more related to the KPIs than the report itself. The report number is linked to the KPI number. So that's why you may have in one KPI 1 or 2 reports, one Webby and one analysis workspace. And then finally, it's not a priority from property management point of view, but yes, we have a couple of reports on incident accident. From there, we will jump to write-off and disposal. For that, we do have 4 KPIs to go through. And finally, we will go, 4 for write-off and 3 for disposal. And then we have a customized AWS for write-off and disposal. You see that all the green box are related to AWS analysis workspaces customized for you by the RDM team in Valencia. So that's the mind map that we will refer every single time. So now what we're going to do, basically, we're going to go through the receiving goods, and that's why we have report number 10 for that. Okay. So in the meantime, let me log into the system as we go. Please bear in mind that I'm going to log into the regression system, which is basically the pre-production environment in BI, in Umoja BI. Why we are not logged into production right now? It's because not all reports are working. I'm not saying properly, but the performance ratio is not the best because they are still transporting the data from the pre-production environment to the production environment. We are hoping to have all the reports and users available now in 1-2 days, but because we didn't want to risk and stay in the prompt too much time, that's why we prefer to go to the system, which basically looks the same as production, but only with a smaller range of data up until 2018. But now the aim of this training is not going through the data itself, but to show how those reports work, and from there you do the analysis based on your reporting entity and business area. So let me log in. So basically, this is as any of you can do in production now. You'll see the property management folder. And there, what I'm going to do is go to report number 10. You see report number 10, virtual goods received process timeline. I have two. One is a WebI, you see Web Intelligence reports, and the other is an analysis workspace. Okay. So for report number 10, let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so the key action, and this is the template that we created for every single report during this week. It's for every single report you have a key action, a business need, this report, the measurement, the action owner, and the KPI itself, the setting of the KPI and the tolerance of the KPI. So for report number 10, which is a virtual goods received timeline, the key action is to ensure the accuracy of IPSAS financial reports and use of IPSAS information for asset portfolio management. Okay, that the key action is related more to the strategy itself from the property management in New York. So this is all within a strategy matrix. So that's the key action related to that report. But then we do have a business needs, which is to monitor the timeliness of the recognition of the asset itself in transit in line with the delivery principle. So basically, what we're going to measure here is the average time that it's needed to record a virtual goods received of a fixed asset. How the KPI is expressed is the average time between the actual date of transfer of ownership as per the Incoterm, and then the date of recording of the virtual goods received in the system. And the unit of measure is days. So action owner over there is R&I, procurement, and MoveCon, maybe the, let's say, the users of this report. And the KPI related to this report is target is set at 15 days. 15 is 15 days, unit of measure, and the tolerance rate is 5. Okay. So for every single report, you'll see when you receive this presentation, you have, let's say, a template with the presentation of the report, and then you have an initial idea of how the report looks like in terms of screenshot. But we'll do that along in the system as well. So remember that I double-click on the report. I just wanted you to see the prompts. You see that the prompt is giving you 1, 2, and 3 mandatory fields. Date from, date to, receiving plant, and then reporting entity. Always reporting entity is not a mandatory field. Green means it's an optional. Okay, so basically you put the range of time that you want to report upon, and from there you put a reporting plant, which is your plant from the, let's say, the inventory point of view, and from there you will launch the prompt. Because we will not have time to go through all these demos, let me just go directly to the screenshot. Basically, when you launch this prompt, in this case I selected reporting entity Unifill. With plant Unifill, LV10, and then basically the report will give you information on the number of assets that I have in that range of time and the current capitalized value of those assets. Okay, and the KPI virtual goods received process time will be 0, right, for that particular asset. But then if I have here 15, 16, 150 number of assets, this KPI will be the average time of the time between we do record in the system based on the Incoterms, the virtual goods received, and then the time when it's really recorded in the system manually, right? So the time it's 15 days, as you can see in the template, 15 days, and then 5 days of tolerance. That's for all virtual goods received. For the ones received itself, not in transit, we have here another column, but basically it's the same because we have no transit fixed assets in Unifield for those range of times, right? So it's a very static report, gives you information, direct information on the KPI on number of days and average time. Nothing more complicated than that, okay? We put a screenshot as well on that. Please remember that you can always filter your report. Even though that this is a web intelligence report, you can always filter a report by different values, okay? Let me just go to the system fast. Let's see if it is here. I think I had the information from Unifield. Okay, because I saved a prompt initially, I do have here the master data elements, so I click on the retrieving data. But basically this report will give us information on the count of the fixed assets that are in transit and the ones physically received. Then we'll have information on the IPC, which is the capitalized value of the assets, and then we will have a third column with the average R&I process timeline for each of these reporting entities. Okay, so not really very difficult to understand how this report works. This filter bar, this button on the upper menu, is very important in case that you want to filter by asset number, right? If I go back to the presentation, if you click on the filter bar, you will be able to see asset numbers there. There is a drop-down list. From there, you can see the asset numbers if you want to have information specifically of a particular asset number on the KPI. Then, Brian, please confirm whether you have access to the job aids. So what we were discussing before, Brian and myself, is that every time that we are going to take a look at a particular report, Brian or myself, we're going to put in the chat the link to the official job aids already published in the Moya job aid page. So long as we are talking right now, you will be able to see and take a look at the job aids that are officially published. Not all of them, almost most of them are already there. Some others are in the pipeline to be validated. And once all of them are validated, we'll still give you a heads up on that. But please confirm, Brian, whether you can put the link of all those job aids, along as we are talking, not all of them in one shot, but at least this one, report number 10 on Web Intelligence Reports. Over to you.
Yes,
Brian.
Daniel, no problem. I'm doing it as we speak. Okay, I'm about to send it to all attendees.
Okay, so you see that what I did, it's you know, it takes always a bit of time to the prompt. So let me just zoom in just a little bit. So this is the system itself. What I did is I launched for Unifield and 2 years data range from 1st of April 2016 to 1st of April 2018, because this is regression. We don't have like a up-to-date data, but that's not important right now. What is important is to understand how the report looks like. We have all the number of assets here with the current capitalized value. And then we have the ones in transit, which are 7, and the ones received, which is 1. So if you want to take a look at specifically those fixed assets numbers, you have to go to the filter bar. And we will not repeat all these items because we understand that you do know how to do it. If you don't, please offline send us an email and we will give you information and tutorials on how BI navigation, basic and advanced BI navigation is, because we created videos and WebEx on that regard. So if you want to include a filter for the asset number, it will be as easy as creating the asset number here, and from there you take a look at the number, and from there you have a particular information for that asset number. Okay. If you want to retrieve again all data, you just go to all values on the top, and then you will have the original report. So remember, for all web intelligence reports, you can always click on filter bar, then this small icon here, and from there you can insert any of these different extra fields in your filter, like the plant text, and some others. Okay? So obviously we will have no time to go through all these features, but at least, and this is not a demo itself, it's not a scenario, but at least I think it's important that you understand that there are some functionalities there, as well as on the left panel here, the user prompt input. You can always change your prompt here on the range of data, as well as the receiving plant or even the reporting entity. If you click on advanced, you will see the prompt again, and from there you can modify. Once you click on OK, you'll see the report modified. And if you want to close it, you just click here on this arrow. Obviously, you can export, and all those those pieces of information are in the job aids. You can export to Excel, you can export in PDF. They do look like pretty much this report in BI, and from there you can create pivot tables and so on and so forth. Before I move on to the next
Sorry, Daniel?
report, yes, Brian, please.
Yes, actually, yeah, before you go to the next report, just to basically, because we have one of the questions in the chat from Isaac, who's wondering, and it makes sense. So I'm looking at this report, and I'm looking at KPI virtual GR process time 0, no? So how do you interpret the KPI of 0, no, as indicated in this example, is his question. Sorry, Daniel, we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't unmute myself.
Okay. All right.
So as the unit of measure, it's explained in this template, it's days, but the report measures the time between the actual date of the transfer of ownership as per the Incoterms. So that's a date that is automatically set into the system, and then the date that is recorded in the virtual goods received in the system. So it's basically, if it is 0, that means that the time between the transfer of ownership of the fixed asset and the time of recording of the virtual goods received is the same day, the system is receiving 0 days. If the time between these two dates, the transfer of ownership and recording of the virtual goods in the system, is more than 1, 2, 3, 4 days, then those days, those numbers will be reflected in the KPI. And as we mentioned before, the target for this KPI is set at 15. So there is still 15 days of range of time between the transfer of ownership and the date we record the virtual goods received. And the tolerance rate is 5, so you can even go up until 20 days. So 0 is that there is no, it's the same day, both recordings, the ones in the system and the ones that it's done in the virtual goods received process. There are some other, if you just go through this report and you just take a look at your data, once you are in production, you can take a look at that KPI in your mission. And obviously, please bear in mind that the KPI is broken down into the equipment in transit or the ones received as well. Okay, I hope that answers the question, but if not, please tell us, and then we can further do some research for you. Okay, so let me move on. Then I didn't mention before, but you see this logo on every single slide in the presentation. If we are talking about a web intelligence report, you'll see this logo with this red sphere, web intelligence, and then every time we're talking about the other type of report, which is an analysis workspace, you see this logo in each of the slides. So you have clarity of the different type of reports that we're discussing. So once we talk about this report, maybe it will be a good time to do a break for 5 minutes, and from there we will follow the session. But let me just finish this analysis workspace, which is basically it's the same information that we saw before, but the difference is just the technical layout and the technical view of the data itself. Instead of a web intelligence reports, what we are seeing here, it's an analysis workspace where we can pretty much work with the same columns that we saw in the web intelligence. You see the count of fixed assets, the KPI, if it is received, if it's in transit, the number of items. So this is the same data that we saw before in the system, 7 plus 1. Okay, but the difference between this report and the other is that if you just scroll down on this part, you have plenty of objects that you can drag and drop in these two boxes, mostly in the part of rows. So you will be able to expand the level of the information based on fixed asset number, on asset class, on asset entry date, and so on and so forth. Okay, for this, we do have a scenario and an exercise, let's say on report number 10. But what we're going to do is just, I'm going to launch the report in this 5 minutes break. So we do have so we gain some time on that. Brian, if you think it's okay, we can just break for 5 minutes, and then after the break, we just give a solution to this scenario. Do you think it's okay?
Yes, sure thing.
Okay. So it's now 3:03 in Valencia time. So we'll see each other in 5-6 minutes. I will put here a countdown clock, and after the break, we will go through this scenario of report number 10 for the virtual goods received KPI, but for the analysis workspace report. Okay. So see you in, or we'll hear each other in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. We're back from the 5 minutes break. What we did is just we launched the report. So we, as we said, we gained some time because you know that sometimes the prompt takes 3, 4, 5 minutes to be launched. So this is a scenario for report number 10, and we hope that all of you are on board. Let me take a look at whether the system works properly or not. Okay, that's the report itself. Perfect. So this is part of the presentation. In some of the reports that we're going to go through, there are demos and scenarios that we're presenting for you to understand how the system behaves. Basically, the scenario, it's MoveCon in Unifield would like to know how many assets had in transit from the period 1st of April 2016 to 2018. How many of them meet the KPI? That's the first question. List of the equipment numbers, in this case, the asset numbers. And is there any virtual material document for physical goods received which contains more than one equipment? If yes, what's the equipment description? So basically what we are basically telling the system, it's just drag and drop. Every time you see this italic font, basically these are objects that you can find in the AWS. So what I did during the break, it's just is to launch this report. Let me just go. Okay, to launch the report, let me just take a look at the prompt so you understand what I put in the prompt. Sorry for that. Okay. Okay, so that's. If I click here on the prompt, I will see what's originally inserted in the prompt. So what I put is the range of data from 2016 to 18, receiving plant LV10 for the virtual goods received, and then as an optional, you always have the reporting entity, I believe, here, but we are not going to put anything. required, and from there I click in OK. Okay, so this is the data. This is the data that is initially retrieved. Basically, it's the same thing that we saw in the Web Intelligence. I have the current capitalized value, the number of items, whether they are received or in transit, with a total result. If we want to know first, when we launched, how many of them meet the KPI. If it is 0, that means that all of them are 0. But if you'd like to know, it's as easy as basically going in the left panel with all these objects that are available for you. Basically, dragging and dropping the equipment serial number, for example. Let me just take a look at it. Okay, so I'm dragging and dropping there the equipment serial number, and forgive us that sometimes it takes a bit of time to reflect that in the report. What I'm going to do as well, I'm going to share with you the job aids web page. So that's the Umoja job aids web page, and there is part of the table which is called Property Management Performance BI Reports. There, with the numbers of the reports and the analysis workspace there, you do have a link to the job aid. So in this case, let me go to the virtual goods received. So while the report is being launched, then you can see how it looks like. Basically, as we said before, it's the average goods received process timeline for each mission calculated in days, but you can even see the count of fixed assets that are physically received and the ones in transit status, right? On there, in each of the job aids, you have information on how to locate the report as well as export the report. Okay, we are not going to go through all these items now, but here that's where I wanted to go. In the data panel, you have in all the job aids a description of the measures. Remember that the measures in the analysis workspace are here on this columns box and are basically numbers on this right part of the report. Okay, so every time we're talking about dates, we're talking about percentage, we're talking about values, we're talking about quantity, number of items, and so on and so forth. Those will be measures in BI. Whereas if we are talking about a master data element that is related to property management, and this particular case for the equipment, then we'll have to take a look at this blue iconed list of items on the left part, where you can just drag and drop, and then that transaction will be reflected in the right side panel, which is the report itself. What I did is I dragged and dropped to the rows the equipment serial numbers. We have a list of the serial numbers related to those assets, and with information of the capitalized value and the counter of assets. Obviously, the KPI, as the KPI, average KPI for all the 8 assets were 0, each of those items are 0, right? But if we have another number, another average time, then this KPI will be broken down into different KPI by equipment. Okay, so you can break down by equipment number even the KPI, right, and the value and the counts of assets. Let me go back to the scenario. So when the scenario is asking us to list all the equipment numbers, it's as easy as basically drag and drop the equipment serial numbers, and you'll see here the serial numbers. Then another question is there any virtual material document for physical goods received which contains more than one equipment? Okay, for virtual, then we'll go, this is on the left panel, is sorted in alphabetical order. So you see the virtual material document is the very one at the end, and dragging and dropping. And then I will see the virtual goods received number related to each of those assets, each of those serial numbers, and then from there I can see whether particular virtual goods received number contains one or more than one equipment. So here I can see that there are 2 or 3 virtual physical goods received number. If it is not clear to me, what I can do is I can reorder the different objects here. So this is the last one now. So let me just put it just above the equipment serial number. So basically, I'm moving this column to the left, and from there I will see the virtual material document numbers for my physical goods received, and I'll see how many equipment serial numbers are under each of those numbers. So so now I can see that I have 1, 2, and 3 virtual material documents for physical goods receipts, and this one has several equipment under each under that document. Okay, and then you can create subtotals and obviously do much more with all these objects on the left side. But for the sake of time and just clarity, we just want you to understand how it looks like. But let me go back to the job 8 because it's important for you to understand that you have a description for all the measures that you can find in the report, information about what each of those items mean, current APC, current acquisition and production cost, capitalized value, R&I timeline, sum of total number of days in the goods received process, and so on and so forth. And then the objects, or so-called characteristics. They are from the one account equipment category in alphabetical order to the last one that I selected, virtual material document for physical goods received. So you have, let's say, like a data dictionary, let's call it that way, with all the description and information related to every single object here and measure here that you can find in each of the reports. So thank you to the RDM team in Valencia for doing that, because they did create, along with our colleagues in New York, glossary of terms for all and every single report that you can find in property management. And that's something that it's not been done in some other BI reports, in some other Umoja processes like funds management or FI or real estate. So this is the information. I see that for this virtual material documents for goods received, for this particular one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 equipment numbers. Let me go back to the scenario. Sorry. If yes, what is the equipment description? Well, the equipment description will be basically, it's not this because this is the serial number, but I will have to go to the left panel, equipment description, equipment DDD should be there, and then we'll have to drag and drop. And from there I will see on this right column, which is the description of each of these serial numbers related to these assets that we discussed in Unifill. So it's not only about the KPI, right? The KPI, of course, is important because that's a reflection of a performance in your mission. But from the KPI and the other different columns and information in the report, you can really drill down and you can really widen up the scope of your analysis from this left panel. And then I see, I can see that this is a generator. So it's a type of generator that six generators were, let's say, received in a particular date. That if you want to know, it will be in the left panel and belongs to the same virtual material physical goods received. So that's it's an easy scenario. I mean, we understand that this is not very complex, but we just want you to practice a little bit on with the reports. These are not the exercise that we are willing to give to you for you to do and send back to us. These are just scenarios that have been presented in the training for us to perform the demo, but for you to do it again. And on top of that, the following slide will be the solution of the scenario itself. In case that you don't have access to the system, you'll see how the solution looks like. And we highlighted a bit of the answers that the scenario is looking for.
And thanks, Daniel. Just very
Yes.
quickly, some of the RDM team members were reaching out to us because I believe in the demo, you dragged and dropped the equipment serial number instead of the equipment number. I believe the solution you have in your PowerPoint is the correct one, but in the demo itself, I believe you dragged the equipment serial number instead. Just an observation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's like a thank you, guys, for catching that one up, because I see the screen very far from where we are, and that's that's the reason why I didn't pick that one, the correct one. But I think you got me. Basically, you have in the left panel the different items that you can use in the analysis, and from there, based on the scenario, based on your needs, based on the situation in your mission, then it's a matter of just dragging and dropping and filtering measures and filtering master data elements within each of the objects to find what you're looking for. Thank you guys in Valencia. So yes, this is the, let's say, solution with the scenario, and then I'm getting back to Brian. Do we have any question before I move on to the following reports in inventory?
And no, Daniel, no further questions.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so now we went to the receiving goods part on KPI number 10 with 2 reports, and we're moving to the inventory management type of reports. Still have 30 minutes to go. Let's say we can cover at least 2 KPIs, and tomorrow we will finish up with inventory management. So report number 19, related to accumulated depreciation. Okay, this is a web intelligence report. The key action is to ensure the accuracy of the financial reports in IPSAS and use of the information required in IPSAS for an asset portfolio management. The basic need is to basically factor the diminution of the value into the formulation of the entity's strategic priorities and long-term planning activities for the establishment of the capital and replacement cost during the budget preparation. But basically, we're going to measure which is the accumulated depreciation for all the fixed assets in our mission, right? And how do we calculate the accumulated depreciation? Basically, it's expressed as a percentage of the historical cost of all the fixed assets in your entity. So the unit of measure will be percentage, and action owners will be commodity managers, finance and budget. The target for this KPI is 60% with a tolerance rate of 10. This is a web intelligence report, and I'm not going to go into the system right now, but this is the screenshot of how the report looks like. Basically, I selected business area S100, which is the UN headquarters, and I have a current APC of all the fixed assets in this business area for more than 1.2 million, with an overall and accumulated depreciation of $384,000. So the current book value is the difference between the two, but in terms of percentage, the KPI is 31%. So basically, you can drag and drop your, not drag and drop, you can select your business area in this report number 19, and from there you can see the total current APC in your mission for fixed assets, the total accumulated depreciation, and the KPI involved. It's not very complicated. I can show to you where it's located in the system. So I'm going to Documents, and then report number 19, I have here the accumulated depreciation to historical cost ratio for P&E and the web intelligence report. Let me just double click on the web, because that's the one we're going to show now. So that's the PowerPoint. Okay, so we do have the same information in terms of accumulated depreciation for fixed assets, but in an analysis workspace. The difference between the two reports is basically that we do have in the analysis workspace specifics on depreciation types, asset specifics like asset number, subnumber, supernumber, the different types of assets. You can filter by cost center, by capitalization type, and so on and so forth. So this is how the report looks like in terms of analysis workspace, but the difference between the previous report 19 Webby and this analysis workspace is the amount of objects that you can use in your analysis related to the asset. And that's why I'm going to go to the job 8, so you see how many different objects are we contemplating. So it's this is the analysis workspace. So that's the same structure of all job aids. Initially, you have an overview. Okay, with basically it tells you the objective of the KPI in this case is to control the diminution of the value in the mission strategic priorities for a long term. BI55 will be the one accessing this report because we are talking about an analysis workspace. Information where you can find it, but let me just go to the, you see, in the initial prompt, you have plenty of information that you can filter upon, from asset class to asset number, super number, GL account, functional area, business area, plenty of them. And you even have some sort of guidance on selecting the asset classes related to the property, plant, and equipment, which is our fixed assets. So these are the different asset classes, the numbers, and the description. 220 furniture, 320 heavy wheeled vehicles and engineered support vehicles. So it's not only information about the report itself, but some information that will make your life easier once you are analyzing the assets in this case for this report number 19. You can obviously do it at the prompt level if you know what you're looking for, or you just can go directly to the report when you have launched the report. Let me just go scroll down. Once you have launched the report, you can even use these objects on the left panel, and from there you can follow on with your analysis. I'm going back to the system. You see that we have hidden optional prompts 12. If I click here in the 12 link, you'll see what you can see in the job aids, all the different information about the assets that we are going to analyze in terms of depreciation, from asset class, asset number, the super number, sub number, and then even the architectural function from there. And if you just want to take a look at the ones required, you click here in required, and you can see that you can only give, you just basically give the start named, a data range, right? The ones required. And then from there you can select basically your business area or the reporting entity as well. Okay, I'm not going to launch the report, but as you can see, it really, the job aid gives you a pretty good idea of we're going to take a look at it, right? And at the end of all the analysis workspaces and the job aids, as I said before, you have description of the measures and description and the different characteristics that you can find in the report. And at the very end, we have the information on the scope determination, and this is important in case that because there is a scope determination in terms of data that this report is extracting. At the end, it says that all the information shown in this report is extracted from ECC Finance fixed asset model transactions, all of them. In some other job aids related to some other reports, you can see that the scope determination is well determined, and the different limitations related to data extraction will be stored in this part of the job aid, scope determination. So basically three main focus in the job aids. Basically the initial part when you see the objective of the KPI. Secondly, a description of the different items that you can find in the measures and in the objects. And finally, the scope determination will tell you, let's say, the boundaries in terms of data of the report. So let me go back to the presentation again. So that's report number.
If I could just jump in a second. This is Kaz.
Sure, Cass. Over to you.
Yeah, it's not that we got lazy in describing the scope in the job aid. It's just that we're not applying any restriction to the data that we're retrieving, unlike other reports. So, you know, if we have a report on what is in physical verification scope, there are business rules. This one doesn't have those business rules. If it's in ECC and it's a fixed asset, it hasn't been deactivated, then we're pulling it. So it's simple as that. That's all.
Exactly. Thank you, Cass. Exactly. Thank you, because in some other reports, as you said, it's well determined, the scope determination and the data extraction from where we are extracting the data, so there is no confusion when you take a look at the report and you analyze the data. So thank you, Cass, for so let me go on with the presentation. This is how the report looks like, and this is scenario. Leave it to you, because we really want to go on the different reports. But this is scenario basically is basically launching the report for let's say S100, which is UN headquarters, and we are asking whether you can find any particular asset belonging to a grant. And then if you find a grant, how many assets, which is the asset with the highest KPI for report number 19, and which is its description. Then you have a screenshot of the solution of that, so you can have a bit of a hint of which objects are we using for the solution, right? This is the grant. So basically you have to drag and drop a grant master data field into the report, and from there you'll have the grant number and the different assets under of those grants and the capitalized value, the accumulated depreciation, and the KPI involved. So after we've gone through the report number 10, which is the virtual goods received timeline, and then the number 19 related to the accumulated depreciation of P&E and fixed assets, then we're going to jump into the report number 9, which is an important one, and this is an analysis workspace. There is no web intelligence report, to the best of my knowledge. But basically, this report will give you information on the rate of reconciliation of discrepancies related to record accuracy. So basically, the key action here is to ensure the proper control and accuracy of the property records. There's a business need, which is to monitor the process of review and reconciliation of discrepancies. And what we're measuring here is basically the number of equipment records with serialization profile UN01 reviewed and reconciled by a commodity manager. This KPI is expressed as percentage of the total number of items marked with discrepancy related to user location status. That's the, let's say, marker that we are looking for. And the percentage will be the unit of measures of this KPI. The target of this KPI is obviously 100%, because you want to reconciliate all the discrepancies related to the accuracy of records with a tolerance rate of 5%. So let me go to report number 9 to the system, and let me take some time off with Brian. Brian, do you have any questions so far? Any comment as I'm logging into the system?
And not actually. We had one before, like 2 or 3 minutes ago, but it's been answered already on the chat, but I'll bring it up just in case. It mainly has to do with the difference with Web Intelligence reports and Analysis Workspace reports. So the question is, Do we have to, can depreciated values for equipment be extracted through BI, or do we have to calculate them manually, right? So basically that since they didn't see that in the Web Intelligence report, they thought that we would have to do the calculation manually. But of course, the analysis workspace offers the possibility to drag and drop a new object, and you can see the calculation is provided there in the report. So a lot of the times, if you guys do not see a calculation or an object in a Web Intelligence report, you will find it in the analysis workspace. So it's always worth taking a look at the analysis workspace and see how that one can suit your needs if the Web Intelligence report doesn't, by any chance. And that's it, Daniel. That was the only other question.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not mistaken, basically thank you, Brian. The WebEx will be, let's say, the official report with the basics on the KPI for your mission, for your reporting entity, and then the analysis workspace are intended more to do the analysis itself, to really understand the specifics of each of the items that we are reporting upon in the Web Intelligence report. That's why WebEx it's static and the analysis workspace it's more dynamic. So I'm going to look for MONUSCO. I think it's, let me just take a look at the, I think it's MONUSCO for report number 9. So I'm going to look for MONUSCO, important how to use the binoculars over here.
And Daniel, while you keep looking and populating the prompt, there's also questions on why I can't access a certain report. So basically, if you guys are trying to access these reports in production right now, not all of them are up and running. I believe I have shared that in the chat before, thanks to Juan Reverte, who kindly also wrote that in the chat. So don't think that they're all available yet in production. I know they should be ready, up and running by today, tomorrow, during this week. There's not really a set date, unless the RDM team wants to give me a specific date. Now in the chat I'll let you know. So don't expect all these reports to be available and up and running in production. What Daniel is looking at right now is not production, okay? It's pre-production, so it's sort of like a training environment, but not really. So whatever Daniel is seeing now doesn't mean you guys can access it in production. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brian. Yes, exactly. And that's important to know, because I guess that you guys are eager, and it's totally understood that understandable that you want to take a look at the data in your reporting entity. So, but it will be totally accessible, I guess, during the week. As we said before, the pre-production environment, the production environment now is getting let's see, connected in a way, so all data and universes of data are transferred to production, and that takes some time and some refinement. So once that's done, all these reports will be accessible for you, and most importantly, you will have to do at least a couple of exercises in production and send back to us. So what do we see here? What I did, it's, let me just go to the report itself. I launched this analysis workspace to basically, it's going to tell me the discrepancies detected by the PCIU unit, and it's intended to monitor the actions taken by all commodity managers in reconciling these discrepancies. Important to know that this is only for a UN01 serialization profile, and we have a polling question for that after that. Remember that UN01 will be the UN serialized equipment, and we have another profiles or serializations that are not in the scope of these reports. So I will go to the report. I launched basically as a business area MONUSCO, but the system it's giving me as a reporting entity MONUSCO as well. Okay, so here is a one-to-one, let's say, relationship in the reporting and business area, and what I see here is different discrepancy types. The one that we want to take a look at number 2, which is the user location status, right? Because if we don't have any discrepancy found, it will be in the first row with the number of items and the percentage of discrepancy. Not found yet. Here I have a number of items reconciled by the technical section in terms of percentage, so 56 out of 56. Then number 2, which is discrepancy type user location status, pending from technical section review, 792. Correct me if I'm not saying right, because it's a bit way, the screen. But that represents basically the pending. It's 93% of all the pending items still to be, all the items pending to be reviewed by the technical section. Reconciled only 58, which is 6%. So information about the reconciliation by technical section and the ones pending to be reconciled and the total number of equipment. Okay, I did launch this report and I put a screenshot in this presentation for all the reporting entities. You see, I don't know if we can see better. Okay, you see a lot of reporting entities over here, and then I found that if you launch the report with all reporting entities, you do have to insert a subtotal by reporting entity to fully understand all percentages. So please bear in mind that especially if you want to have a larger view in terms of all reporting entities for this particular item, report number 9, all the information will be, let's say, shown in line by line, but there is no subtotal by let's say reporting entity. And a good practice will be, in case that you want to report in plenty of reporting items, to create your subtotal, and from there you will be able to break down a little bit easier all the information, right, by reporting entity. And as we said, the pending to be reconciled, the ones that were reconciled with the technical section, and the total amount. Gonna go to the job aids there, and I understand that Brian is sharing this job aids live as we are speaking. So
yes, Daniel, just this is the last one missing, number 9.
Thank you. You're all over, I know that. So as we said before, objectives for these reconciliation discrepancies, which is intended to assess discrepancies detected by PCIU and monitor commodity managers' actions in reconciling these discrepancies. Let me see at the very end. As said, scope determination, limit results to equipment records that were physically verified during given period. Obviously, the ones who have not been physically verified will not be in the scope of this report. So the information that we see in the report, it's related to the ones pending to be physically verified. It's giving you the numbers here in the report will give you information from the scope to be physically verified, the ones pending, the ones already completed. And remember that the target for this KPI is 100%, as you are meant to reconcile all discrepancies found in the physical verification process. So that's the data. Obviously, we'll not go through all this, but as you can see, the categories, the different objects as they are described, you have plenty of information to go through for this one, report number 9. And as I said, if you do want to report for a lot of reporting entities, a good practice will be to insert a subtotal, otherwise will be a bit of a mess to understand. So that's for report number 9. In case that we don't have any questions, this one is pretty straightforward. We do not have web intelligence for this. It's only an analysis workspace, but it gives you a quite useful amount of information, especially when you are in the process of doing the physical verification activities. So this report will give you information not only on the report itself, but the specifics on the equipments and details and drilling down of each of the equipments that have to be physically verified and still are pending to be done. So after that, we're going to go to the reporting inventory list of options. So let me do a wrap up before I go through the reporting on inventory. We went through the report number 10 on virtual goods received, and we jumped into 19 for the accumulated depreciation. Then KPI 9 related to the pending items to be physically reconciled or reconciled in the physical verification process. And after that, we're going to focus and devote all our efforts today and tomorrow on the reporting on inventory. Why did I put here list of options? Basically because all of them are related to, let's say, KPI number 20, but we do have a wide number of reports subject to be used in terms of inventory, which is the first one. The first one will be report number 20, which is the total inventory value. It's a web intelligence report, and it gives us information from the fixed asset point of view, whether it's a real estate asset, it's an equipment, it's an asset under construction, or it's an intangible asset, like a software or a copyright. But then on top of that, we will have information on the value of the human reserve, IPSES, value of the SDS, the strategic deployment of stocks, and even information on rations and bottled water. That's report number 20 of total inventory value. And I wanted to put this slide because the report number and description, it's very similar one to each other. And you can find in production very close to each other. And sometimes you may confuse yourself when selecting one or the other. So you go to 20 here. We have several options. And the name is very close to each other. That's why we thought it was useful to create a slide to give a bit of clarity on that. So that's the first one, report 20 on total inventory value. Second one, it's an analysis workspace on total inventory value, but only for fixed assets. And the information in terms of value is by group of asset classes. The same, the breakdown on type of assets, real estate, equipment, asset under construction, and intangible assets. Third one, it's called total inventory value inventory, between parentheses, and it's giving you information on the value of the human reserve, value of the SDS, and rations and bottled water. Difference between this one and this one, it's basically that the third one is not giving you information on the fixed assets, and the third one is an analysis workspace that you can use and customize, whereas the web intelligence report, it's a static report. Okay. And last but not least, we have an AWS on inventory designed by the RDM team, which will give you access to do an analysis of your stock by stock type, meaning unrestricted stock, restricted stock, in transit stock, blocked, returned, in quality, and then you can use it by unit price and so on and so forth. And on top of that, you can do the analysis by material or by material group. Okay, so a bit of the, in a snapshot of where we will do tomorrow, it's basically these 4 reports. We will explain to them which are the difference between the two. We do a demo in this analysis workspace, and with these 4, you will have a pretty good idea of the list of options that you have for reporting on inventory. Okay. I don't know, Brian, whether we have the polling questions available on report number 9 and 19, I think, the previous ones.
Yes, I can have them. I can have them ready. Yeah.
Okay.
You would like me to launch them now?
If possible. If not, we'll do it tomorrow.
Sure. Sure. Send it to me. Give me the presentation role, and I'll do it right now.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to give to you 2-3 polling questions, more on the. Let me just change the role. Yes. So we do a bit of recap of the previous reports, and tomorrow the idea is to go through these 4 reports along with the ones on equipment. From there, we will jump into the warehouse stock management records for physical verification. Okay, so it's important to leave it here rather than going to the first report, number 20, because tomorrow in 45 minutes we can just have a pretty good idea of how each of these reports are meant to show, and the scope in terms of the data that each one of these reports have. So before we finish, we will launch.
Yes,
it's
Daniel.
already launched, right?
Yes, just letting you know, I already launched the polling, and you guys can access it at any time. I believe, as you're saying, Daniel, this will be the last polling of the day.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, guys, you have another 5 minutes, I guess. In this sense, there's a little too much time, but there's still 80 attendees. So by the time they get through it, and if they, as they finish, Daniel, if you want, I can start telling you. So maybe we can move on, and once the results come out, I can go through the answers. So we don't have to wait the full 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just take a look at this slide. Perfect. So we'll give you the just a minute or two to answer. It's related to the report number 9, the rate of reconciliation of discrepancies, whether the scope is for UN01 serialized items or UN05, what basically means each of those concepts. So this is more than GDP, the previous trainings that we did almost 2 years ago, but we want you to have clarity on what UN01 means and what UN05 means. So once we give answer to that one, we can just finish and wrap up the session with the mind map and a bit of what we are going to see and cover tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So you have an idea of what to expect. And especially now that you have access and you will have access to the job aids, you can even download and follow the different sessions as long as you are reading or you're going through the job aid. So I think we can, Brian, we can just go with the answer.
Okay, sure thing, Daniel. I think anyway, right now there's only 4 left in progress, and at least 50 have done it already. So
good.
yes, people are still doing the polling. But anyway, let's go through the answer, which is quite simple. So I'm just going to share the screen quickly here. Hold on. And here you go. Sorry, because I'm going through one screen and another. Okay, and I believe now everyone should be seeing the Word document. So for report 9, rate of reconciliation of discrepancies related to record accuracy, user location, status, which of the below is true? So as you probably all guessed, or the majority of you guessed, we had A, B, and C, even though here it shows us A, E, and F. First one is for the UN01, UN-owned serialized tract from a property stewardship requirement, and UN05, records that need to be created from an operational management perspective, and some examples. So of course the correct answer was the last one, which encompasses both. Okay. All right, so that's
exactly.
the answer for report number 9. Yeah, sorry.
Exactly. No problem. It's obviously for report number 9, we're going only to the scope of the data. It's for UN01, as you can see in the template that I showed. And if you can kindly, Brian, pass the presenter role to me so I can finish up the
sure thing.
The explanation. Thank you. So it's UN01 type of equipment, and let me just go real fast through the. Okay, so this report, it's the number of equipment records with serialization profile UN01. Review it and reconcile by community manager. UN01, UN05 type of equipment, which are the ones related to operational management perspective, which are like body armor or fire extinguishers. Those type of equipment will not be in the scope of this KPI. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to basically refresh on this concept, and secondly, you understand or reinforce, underline the fact that the scope of the data for report number 9 in terms of physical verification is EUN 01 serialized type of equipment. So let me share my screen, and with this, I'm going to go again to the mind map, which is a very useful item. Let me just go here, item, before I finish. Okay. So just as a wrap up for today's session, I know it's quite a lot. It was 2 hours with only 5 minutes break. But we did spend 35 minutes of our time to explain what a reported entity is, what a and the linkages between reported entity and the business area. Why it's important? It's important because you'll find both master data elements in the prompts, so you'll have to know what to select depending on your need. It's important to understand that you may have several business areas under the only one reporting entity. We do recommend you to do a bit of a, let's say, assessment of how many business areas are under your reporting entity to understand whether the data is correct or not. In case that you only want to report based on your business area, you can do that because that's a mandatory field and you can forget about the reporting entity. In any case, many reports by default will give you information about records in a reporting entity related to the business area that you put in the initial prompt. But once we understand that part, then we started with the mind map, with our reports, which is the part of receiving goods in the virtual goods receipt process, report number 10. Then we jumped into number 19, now in inventory management, more related to the fixed asset part. Then we showed to you the report number 9 in order to do the reconciliation of the discrepancies once we are in the process of the physical verification, understanding that there are some pending items, and we do have an analysis workspace, which is a report number 9, to give us information by each of the discrepancy types and each of the authorization groups, and you can really drill down to the equipment which needs to be, or it is pending to be reconciled. And after that, we just give you a bit of a hint of the reporting for inventory, which we have several reports related to the KPI number 20, report for fixed assets, report for bottled water and rations, report for inventory in general with the UN reserve and strategic deployment of stocks. And finally, we have an analysis workspace, only devoted, which is this one, for inventory purposes. And those are the ones which we will cover tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, we will probably even tomorrow we will touch base on the equipment utilization time frame, and then we will start with the warehouse stock records type of reports, which are related to the physical verification process and the KPIs related from 1 to 5. And then if we have time, we will jump into the report 12 and 16, which are related to the operational stock. And the last ones will be the write-off and disposal reports. So thank you very much for your attention. Now it's 16 hours in Valencia. We do appreciate that you guys stayed a good couple of hours with us. This is long. It's a lot of information. There are plenty of reports. We want you to understand that in case that you are not following the session for whatever reason, still will receive the content in the presentations and the exercises. And I don't know, Brian, if you have any other issue, any other comment or issue, Cass, in case you want to close up the session as well.
No, just to reinforce the point that for example, the equipment analysis workspace will will contain a lot of the information that we see in these individual reports. So someone had asked the question, can we look at the depreciated value of any equipment? And the answer is yes, that you can look at it through what the report we showed, or you could look at it, let's say, in the equipment workspace. Once the reports, even though they're published, once they're all ready to go in terms of role and security, play around with them and you'll see what they're capable of.
Thank you, Cass. And Brian, any insights from you, or we close it and we leave it for tomorrow?
Yeah, well, we have to cut off soon anyway because we have a VTC waiting for us. But just quickly, we'll have to just review that last polling question that we just shared, and especially the answer, just to make sure that the wording is correct and that the answer is not C but B, right? Instead of both, it was UN05. Okay, we just, because a couple of people were writing in the chat about that, but that would be it. Okay, so we'll just clarify that and share it with the attendees.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So having said all that, thank you very much for your time and your patience, and we'll hear each other tomorrow at the same time, same venue. Thank you very much, guys.